Welcome to episode 59 of Comic Book Nation, the official podcast of Comicbook.com. I am your host, Kofi Outlaw, and with me today, my co-host, Matthew Aguilar.
What's up, everybody?
And we've brought back Turn Up Charlie himself. Mr. Charlie Ridgely is here today.
Hello.
And of the many things, we got a lot to cover today because the news has been crazy. We have upcoming things that are happening, and in between, there's still movies and stuff coming out.
Yeah.
So we've got to go over all of that. But today in our news flash section, we're going to be talking about Spider-Man's movie future, continuing on this whole Disney-Sony fiasco, showdown, Mexican standoff.
Beef.
I don't know when beef. Yeah, I guess studio beef.
Oh,
We'll
Tom
talk about
Holland's
that.
diss track is going to be so good.
Right.
I don't know what you two are talking about. We're also going to be talking about the new trailer for the new space thriller Ad Astra starring Brad Pitt, and we're going to be talking about what's going on in the Star Wars TV universe. So be sure to stay tuned, because when we come back, we're getting into all of that. All right, so we're back, and we're going to just go right back in with what we were talking about last time, which is this whole studio movie beef, comic book beef between Sony and Disney over the usage and rights to Spider-Man. Disney wanted to invest more in the next Spider-Man movie after Far From Home made $1 billion. In order to get a bigger payout from sharing the risk and the cost to getting a bigger payout. Sony was like, nah, brah, we don't want that. It gets real murky from there because we've produced about 1,000 articles, 5 of which I actually want to read, so that, tell me.
3 of them.
Yeah, there you go. I think those are the 3
And
out
I'm
of 5.
confused.
Yeah.
I wrote 3, and I'm still confused.
It was just so all over the place. Everybody's saying something, but the long short of it is they cannot agree on a deal to kind of proceed forward. At least not right now.
Yeah.
And there have been developments since we first reported this. So kind of we'll just talk a little bit about that. Right now, there's the industry is going a little nuts with people, analysts, and everybody from celebrities to analysts and everybody putting their 2 cents in about what's going to happen here. And we got 2 main schools of thought. One is that, there has to be some kind of reconciliation for both parties. The mutual benefits outweigh, whatever they can do separately.
Yeah.
And so, Sony needs Marvel because the Spider-Man movies have set up all of these Marvel Universe ties that would be so awkward to kind of just drop. Marvel needs Spider-Man because, Spider-Man has become an integral part of the current MCU and where that franchise was headed in the future. We just spent a whole film setting him up as the next Iron Man of the MCU. Now to just kind of pull him out. So a lot of people believe, there has to be some kind of reconciliation, which is possible. Of course, the other school of thought is there's no way they are going to reconcile because some analysts point to Sony right now, and we were trying to explain where this all came from. How did we come here? And some people say Sony's gotten a little too chesty. They got a little too happy with themselves after 2018 because they had successful Spider-Man universe spinoffs that did not involve Marvel or the MCU in any way. And both, did very well. Venom, despite all the critical drubbings it took, earned nearly $1 billion, $800 million, and launched a franchise. The first Spider-Man spinoff franchise is established. It's here. And then Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the animated film, while it earned only about $300 million off a $90 million budget, it got all of this critical acclaim and has been become this cult hit. I mean, it's just killing it on Netflix. I was on vacation, with my friends, of whom there are 11 other people in my friends group. Of those, 9 have wives and kids, and so imagine a room full of all of our kids piled up, and they were just all watching Spider-Verse transfixed.
Yeah.
So into it, and it's been happening. My niece, my kids have been watching this. So they had these big successes, and now people are saying Sony's feeling, they're feeling themselves, that they can make successful Spider-Man franchise and universe without Marvel. And so therefore, and Marvel doesn't need Sony because the MCU is killing it with or without Spider-Man. So therefore, there's no reason for them to reconcile. So that's where we are. And we're in this weird stalemate where we're just kind of in a wait and see.
But I don't think it's, because I've seen that too. I've seen a lot of people Sony is being a little chesty. I don't think it's really that. I think that's a byproduct of that. It's about money, and it's about the significant amount of money. So I unfortunately had to do math earlier today, which I hate doing math. All right, I hate doing math, but I had to do a whole article bringing all these amounts down and stuff because essentially the 2 things are There's one report out there that, and we still don't even really know what Sony and Marvel's, the full details of what their original deal was. There's still stuff about that. Evidently, that was around 10%. Is what Marvel, that is what I've heard as far as what Marvel.
I thought it was lower than that.
Well, see, I thought it was lower. There's like 4 things out there.
Yeah, I've heard 5 to 10% is the general.
So that's the ballpark. Then we hear that in this
and that's
renegotiation.
for what Marvel got from Spider-Man
and
movie.
let's also establish that Marvel gets all of the money from the licensing and all the products and everything.
About the movies.
Yeah. Right, I'm just saying, in addition to that cut.
Yes, but
Marvel gets all that already.
I was going to get there. I know.
Sorry.
Yeah. You're totally Jimmy.
You're totally Jimmy. So here's the thing, though. That initial report will say 5 to 10%. The original report said Marvel now wanted 50, which they wanted to also offer a financial stake, so they're going to put money in, but they want 50%.
How they introduced that.
Yeah,
they wanted to take on more risk, but earn more reward.
Yes, and then a new report said today that 30% was the number, not 50. And if you look at that amounts. If you look at those amounts, it doesn't really matter what percent, because 30 to 50%, that's a lot of money. Like when we're talking about billion-dollar movies here, like that's a sizable amount of money. I think 30%, if they had to deal with Far From Home and you account for like advertising and the budget, that would have netted Marvel like 200 mil. Like that's when you're talking Endgame makes $2 billion, that's nothing it seems, but that's 200 mil from essentially just like, that's another character. That's not even our major project. That's just something we're a part of. So that's a lot of money. But Sony gets all of that money. Like, I think it comes down to Venom they didn't have to share. Like, and Marvel's still paying them, as part of that original deal, an annual, like, just payment agreement, depending on how those movies do. And so, like, Homecoming, they paid around, like, 30 mil that year to Sony, just for like as part of their annual thing. Sony's making bank off of this. And I don't think it's them being like, we can do this without you. I think they would genuinely want Feige in a perfect world, and they want those things, but they're not willing to give up their cash cow. This is their biggest franchise. I mean,
not only is it their biggest, it's one of the only things they have.
Yeah,
that makes
right
money.
now. Unless Ghostbusters
Disney
when that comes out.
Disney has so
Men in
much.
Black International.
Right. Yeah.
Every other, if you try to think about the popular titles in Sony, go ahead and think right now. What are the popular things in Sony? Ghostbusters, the last movie, while some people liked it, did not do well financially. Yep. Men in Black. I love Men in Black. Did not do well. The reboot did not do well. Charlie's Angels, we'll see. But it doesn't seem like it's going to light the world on fire. The only thing that Sony has that is a recognizable IP that will draw people in, guaranteed, is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That's all. And so if you're giving up half of the only true moneymaker you have to the studio that owns the entire industry, like it doesn't make sense to do that for Sony.
I don't even think, though, it has anything to do with Marvel or Disney owning any, like, I think it's just they don't want to give up that money.
Right, it's
that's
because
a huge amount of money.
That's their competition.
Yeah.
That's everyone's biggest competition, and then they're handing them half of their first place.
I don't think that factors in, though. I don't think they're even worried about that. They're worried about their own pocketbooks, and that's a lot of money to give up.
I agree. I'm saying you're worried about your own, like, because that's your biggest competitor.
But you're not worried. But see, I don't think they're worried about that. I don't think it has anything. If you subbed in another studio for Disney or Marvel, this would be the same thing. They don't want to give up free money. That's free money for them, and they don't want to give that up right now. I mean, Todd McFarlane's one of the people that like weighed in with like a separate thing of like, if I was Sony's guy, like, would I say yes to that? And he's like, no, I wouldn't say that. And I think there's a lot of that, like, truth to that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, this is what I said when it first happened. Like, Disney is not Marvel Studios. I mean, they own it, but, like, the people at the head of Disney are different from the people at the head of Marvel Studios in terms of their worldview and their overwhelming, vision of conquest in the entertainment industry. Like, Disney wants that money. And, I mean, it's kind of a crazy... It depends all on how you look at the ask. Some people see the ask as just a bullying technique to kind of truly get as much of the Marvel stuff under their belt as they possibly can. And you know that Disney would love to eat up Spider-Man just all over again and be done with this whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
They just won't get Sony to budge because, like you said, you take that away and Sony's just kind of a dead movie studio after that. They've got nothing really big to kind of like pull them. I mean, I think James Bond is still housed under
James
them.
Bond is no longer at Sony.
Oh, it's at MGM?
Yeah.
Well, MGM is
how
domestic,
it's
and then
all-
Universal is the international release
Oh,
now.
yeah, well, there you go.
So Sony doesn't even have that, which was their previous big owner. Like it was their Skyfall was their biggest movie before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Far From
yeah, I
Home.
mean, they're kind of a dead movie studio after that, like, for the foreseeable future, because they don't have anything that's a major franchise starter to compete in this market where we're now talking $2 billion.
Yeah.
And now is the only time since Raimi that they've had a real foothold in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You know, Far From Home wouldn't have been what it was without Endgame. I think we all understand that. But even without Endgame, that movie's still going to make $800-900 million.
Yeah.
You know, and then you have Venom and Far From Home or Spider-Verse and all these things to add to it. They actually have something to build on for the first time in a long time.
Do you guys see a deal getting worked out?
I do ultimately.
Yeah, I do too.
I think at some point.
Does a deal get worked out, or do we have to? Or are we going to spend months talking about Disney's acquisition of Sony Pictures?
No, I don't see that. But I think
Yeah.
I think
You gotta
a
have
lot of
something to
this
sell,
is
right?
I think a lot of this is a negotiation tactic. Like the reason information got out so early and it was so confusing is because they're talking about
Yeah,
it.
they're talking.
That was an offer, and they said no to an offer. And I think maybe Sony, if either of them, you know, put that information out, allowed that information to go out, to cause this stir for them to be a sense of urgency about
Yeah.
it.
I think it'll get done.
yeah.
I do think it'll be a little bit before it does. Like, I don't see next week, oh, we're in here talking about the deal. I would love to be wrong about that.
Yeah.
The sooner this gets done, the better, I think, for everybody. But I think it will be a while, but it will happen.
And if it doesn't get worked out, what happens from here?
And that's really tough because there's been conflicting reports about Tom Holland's contract, and that's a really big factor. So the initial report said Tom Holland and John Watts were signed on for 2 more movies,
Yeah.
regardless of who had it. Which at that point I'm like, okay, if it's not the MCU, that's disappointing, but they could easily work away from that, and it's fine, and I still get Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. That's awesome. But then one of the later reports had something very, very different. It said John Watts is not actually signed on for movies, and that Tom Holland signed a contract for 2 standalone movies and an option for the third. So that would mean, essentially, if it's his option, he can walk away. If
Yeah.
Marvel's not involved and he doesn't want to be doing just Sony movies, he could walk away. And if that's true, it's a totally different future for Spider-Man than if he is locked in for 2 more films. And so there's a lot at play.
Even
that
one
we
more
don't- we
film,
have
even
nothing-
if
no-
because
don't know anything about.
even if he's locked in for one, that changes up. Like, yeah, they'll still have a Spider-Man movie. I have no idea what that's gonna look like.
I mean,
Well,
Spider-Man and Venom,
ironically-
it's got to be.
I mean, ironically,
Right? That would be the
Spider-Man,
that would be the
Venom,
safest
but
bet.
ironically, we're in a place where now, I mean, you could get away with pulling Spider-Man out of the MCU, literally because they just, at the end, spoilers for Far From Home, just did this thing where they flipped everything and Spider-Man's technically possibly a fugitive. So another movie where he's not making contact with anybody in the MCU.
Would work
make
fine.
sense.
Yo, what if they did? I just thought about this. So, what was the ending of Venom, and what's Venom 2 going to be about?
I mean, possibly Carnage.
What if they pull out and just like screw it, maximum carnage?
I mean,
All in.
that's the first thing, like everybody's
Like, that would be-
well, getting that maximum carnage.
That would be nuts.
yeah,
I mean,
And I kind of want to see that.
If you're on Marvel's bad side anyway, just go all out and
I mean,
do
that's
it
what I
before
would
the
start
deal
thinking
gets
if I
done.
was
I kinda wanna
Sony.
see
I was
it.
like, how do I keep this Marvel thing going for possibly a future reconciliation?
Yeah.
Just get over the hump now. You pull out, you do Venom 2, you introduce Carnage, then you do Maximum Carnage movie. Like
You get it all
Spider-Man-
done.
Yeah, just that Spider-Man 3. It's just like Tom Holland's on, Peter Parker's on the run. He has to flee because everybody's looking for him. The Avengers are looking for him. Like all the, you gotta say, all the heroes are looking for me.
Yeah.
One line, boom. I'm going to
it's done.
hide out on the West Coast.
Then you bring
Aunt
back
May's old hippie friends.
Oh, who was it?
All of a sudden.
Who had the Sinister Six movie that they were making?
Don't bring
Cabin in the Woods.
Goddard.
Don't bring
Drew Goddard. Bring that back.
No,
No,
Don't
with the
bring
people.
that.
No. With the people in the MCU, Drew Goddard is a
No.
great writer director. I will stand by Drew Goddard
Yeah,
forever.
great. I love Drew Goddard, but that's such a can of worms to open.
That was not a
Oh,
good
that's so much fun.
concept.
No.
If you can bring back
No.
Michael Keaton, if you can bring in Jake Gyllenhaal, you can bring in the people that were used in this iteration of Spider-Man. If they can be in contract with Sony, that
Yeah,
version of the
that's a
Sinister
whole
Six,
other
100%.
set of ifs that I'm like.
I mean, obviously, it's a hypothetical,
Yeah,
and I
I
have
don't
no
know.
clue at all.
I just don't
but
want
that
to
would-
see
oh,
that
it'd be
movie.
so
I
fun.
don't want to
yeah,
see
I
that
mean,
movie.
and you're also talking about
So
two
fun.
villains. Jake Gyllenhaal. I mean, it's the same problem. Jake Gyllenhaal's villain and Michael Keaton's villain are all directly connected to Tony Stark. So how do you bring those guys back? And we're just gonna like. That's too many people.
I mean, but now
dancing
they
around
have
mentioning
now they
Iron
have
Man.
now they have a personal vendetta against Peter.
Yeah, but you're now talking about a film where we are all watching 3 guys who are all heavily connected to Iron Man, never mention Iron Man.
Nope.
Aunt May's never mentioning Iron Man. Nobody mentions Iron Man at Midtown High. Suddenly, Midtown Science has stripped out all the Captain America videos.
Whatever. It's
for
fine.
new videos by Norman Osborn.
Can
or
you
something.
do it?
Like,
Yes, you can
Yeah.
totally
Yes,
do
you
it.
just ignore it.
Will it suck?
Yes,
Absolutely. because-
everybody
Yeah.
in that theater. They might
No,
well
Drew
just
Goddard
call it
wouldn't suck.
Spider-Man Elephant in the Room.
No.
Drew Goddard wouldn't make it. It wouldn't suck. It'd be.
I don't know. No,
It'd be all right.
I mean the Sinister Six thing didn't work before. I don't see it.
I'd rather
and that
Maximum
came out of a
Carnage. I'd rather
desperate
that.
time when a second Spider-Man movie didn't do. Like
I'd
it
rather
led to
see
some
Silver and
uncertain
Black
future.
before I see.
Yeah, so would I. Like, I would
Sinister
I
Six.
would rather.
If it was Sinister Six from anybody else, I'd be worried about it. But Drew Goddard's so good.
I'd rather see every one of these standalone movies like Morbius,
Oh, yeah,
Venom
Morbius.
2,
There you
Silver
go.
and Black. Man, I will even take like what's the guy you like from
Cardiac.
Cardiac movie? Yeah, I'll take a
Cardiac.
movie before we do this.
Give me a Drew Goddard.
How many
Cardiac
times is Drew
movie.
Goddard going to get shut down though? X-Force is in the can because of the Fox purchase.
I mean, that sucks.
Sinister Six
start making good
didn't work out.
choices.
But
Start making-
none of that was his fault.
Like a cardiac solo movie.
All right, we got to move on. So let's talk about this Ad Astra trailer. Brad Pitt is starring in this movie about an astronaut who became an astronaut because he found out. I mean, he idolized his father. His father went on some Event Horizon type deal into space, never seen again. But now he's back, or the ship's back, and Brad Pitt is his astronaut now who has to go and meet his father and make contact. So this is like a Michael Bay movie, like mashed up with Gravity, mashed up with Interstellar. Nothing. I mean, I say Event Horizon, but it looks like there's nothing horror about this. It's mostly like a sci-fi drama. And I was just kind of interested because it's been a minute since we've talked about a space movie. I like actual space science fiction movies.
Yeah.
Not science fiction in the sense like there's aliens or weird worlds, but like more science factual type deals about like space exploration and stuff like that. So is this going to be the next Gravity? Is it going to be a disappointment like Interstellar, or is it just going to be a really great Armageddon? I said
I think it'll be
because it's like
somewhere.
Earth's under threat, and he has to find his father and save him.
Well, the most
And he's
intriguing
hanging
part
out
about
with Liv
that.
Tyler in bed in the
that's
beginning.
true,
And I was
yeah.
just
I
like,
did think
if
when
you just
she
start
popped
playing
up-
Aerosmith right now,
Well, he was with Liv Tyler in the beginning,
Yeah.
and Tommy Lee Jones as an astronaut is his dad.
Yeah.
So you have what was it, Apollo 13?
Yeah.
Or Space Cowboys.
No, Space Cowboys.
Space
Oh, I
Cowboys.
loved Space Cowboys.
Yeah.
That was fun. I think it's going to be somewhere in between. I don't think it's going to be. Gravity was really good. I loved Gravity a
did too.
lot. So I don't think it's going to be maybe that high, but this is a really good trailer, I think. I think the most interesting part about it is the mystery of his dad going to Mars, his dad being the one who possibly discovered this threat or this virus. Like there's like some kind of
threat.
something that's happening to the Earth, and like he's evidently the one that created it, and so that's what makes
Or
his
he's
son.
actually, it's like he's carrying a material that could save them, but it's also like super duper dangerous.
And like the exploration, the coolest parts too on this is like when they're on Mars and you're seeing like the buggies, like they're having this crazy gunfight, like driving across the thing. Like that stuff looks really cool because we don't actually get to see that a lot in sci-fi movies like this type. It's typically like, oh, we're in the ship for 90% of the movie,
Right?
And then we get there, some big thing happens, and then we never really get to see them like explore a planet like that, and so that looks interesting.
Because the first trailer, the initial teaser trailer, or whatever, made it seem like it was very art housey. It was very, which I still think it is, but it kind of has that. I don't want to say Mad Max feel because it's not crazy like Mad Max, but it has that scale to it that Interstellar had, but it has a much more art house feel than Interstellar, and I'm really excited to see that balance, that few filmmakers can really find.
Yeah.
And Brad Pitt looks phenomenal in the movie, especially coming off Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's like I want to see more of what Brad Pitt's doing, and I really think this is going to be the first and probably the only of Fox's movies released by Disney that's going to be successful. Not counting Avatar and then maybe West Side Story. West Side Story will do well because it's Steven Spielberg. It's a Christmas release. It's a musical. Avatar sequels will do okay. But outside of all the Fox films have basically flopped so far.
That's good.
And I think that this will be really the first one that it's not gonna light the world on fire, but it's gonna make solid
right?
money.
Yeah.
His father's experiment threatens Earth. So you're right about that. And it's directed by James Gray, the guy who did like some of the kind of smaller genre movies that were all very solid, even if they didn't get like a lot of acclaim. We Own the Night with Joaquin Phoenix, and Mark Wahlberg, and Eva Mendes. The Yards, He did with Joaquin Phoenix, Charlize Theron, and Mark Wahlberg. So, like,
Seeing a pattern.
yeah, he likes his Joaquin. I mean, this guy unites Joaquin.
I'm
and
sorry,
Mark,
he likes working with good
like,
actors.
That's just the perfect thing for what Ad Astra is, though. It's a perfect
You've
metaphor.
got Joaquin Phoenix and Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
And you have one good actor
unite
to
them.
rope them together.
If you unite them, that's the kind of movie he makes.
Yeah.
He makes.
What was the most recent movie he did?
Appeal to the Joaquin Phoenixes and the Mark Wahlbergs of the world.
Cool with that.
What was that?
See Transformers, or if you see, The Master, you'll like this movie.
Totally thought Daddy's Home.
Yeah.
I love this.
Oh, can we get Joaquin Phoenix in Daddy's Home 3?
Oh, yes. Make that happen. Please.
That would be too crazy. That'd be great. But
Make
crazy.
that happen.
So yeah, I mean, he wants to make this the most realistic film about space travel yet. I mean, I feel like they all say that. Good
Yeah.
luck trying to beat what's his name?
Gravity?
Yeah. Oh my God. What's his? I can't believe I'm blanking on his name right
I am
now.
too. I wouldn't.
Director or the actor?
It wasn't.
Gravity's
Wasn't
director.
it,
Oh my God, I can't believe I'm blanking it.
Why am I just
we are-
completely blanking?
Cuarón.
Jeez.
Jesus, this whole podcast just fell apart. Alfonso Cuarón. So good luck trying to beat him at that. But I'm interested to see this. I do like. Fun fact: I do like a little space exploration movie.
Yeah,
here and
looks
there.
cool.
All right, moving right along for our final news story, The Mandalorian. So we're going to be talking about, Charlie's going to take us through a D23 preview in a little bit, but one piece of news I thought was kind of cool is The Mandalorian, the first live-action Star Wars TV series that's coming to Disney Plus, is already headed into Season 2 production before we even see Season 1, so that's a good sign.
Yay!
We can invest in this and not, worry that it's going to be gone.
Was anyone worried though?
I mean, it's always an unknown. You never know.
I mean, it's unknown, but
It could have been a limited series.
Didn't we-
It could have been-
Also,
limited
that's-
series would be my only concern.
Yeah, we didn't know anything about it. It could be
With
like
the talent
it could be
involved.
It could be a very anthology approach to this, like Marvel's doing. So we
that
didn't
concern
know.
makes sense. Yeah, I'm with you.
So Rick oh my God, I hate his name. Rick Famuyiwa.
Famuyiwa?
Rick Famuyiwa.
I thought it was Famuyiwa.
I can't say it. I can never say his name.
I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna just sound confident and say it.
Just
I'm
say it
rolling
again.
with
You guys, I'm not even.
Say it again.
Rick Famuyiwa.
There you go. That guy.
Rock and
Director
roll.
of Dope, one of my favorite movies of the 2010s.
At one time, director of The Flash.
Yep. Oh God, I forgot about that. Yes, he's directing episodes in season 1. John Favreau is kind of show running that, but he's going to step up and take the helm for season 2. Cool. And I love Rick and I love his work, and so I'm kind of excited about that. And it's good. It sounds like The Mandalorian's actually going to be a kind of show worth getting into, a mythology, and then that they have something planned out, and I'm kind of really psyched for that. So yeah, I'm psyched for that. And is this one of your kind of highly anticipated things that we're hoping to learn this weekend at D23?
I mean, this weekend there's supposed to be the trailer for The Mandalorian, which people at Celebration saw the trailer, and some of us watched some versions of the Mandalorian trailer that weren't supposed to be filmed, but they were put on YouTube later. But we should get our first real look at this show. And the fact that Disney, the biggest company in the world, is confident that this show is going to be the cornerstone of their streaming service, which even if you didn't have the original shows, Disney Plus would do well because of the content library that it brings. But the fact that you've got this show and the way, even just those photos, it looks like such a gritty version of it's the version of Star Wars I think a lot of us want to see. It's not quite as big and planet hopping. It's pretty grounded, but we get a chance to really dig into the lives and the different, social classes and the different like the side stories in the big movies that have enticed us forever. We finally get to kind of see those play out, and taking the world of bounty hunters is a really interesting take. And I'm glad they didn't go with just Boba Fett. Like they kind of took just that whole world and are bringing something. And it's on Tatooine, and Tatooine is such a great planet with such history, like to learn from and to explore. You could say what you want about Phantom Menace, but it set up so many cool things on Tatooine. And the same with A New Hope. There were so many things on that planet worth talking about. And this actually gives us that grounded version of those stories that we've been waiting to see. And when you saw the talent involved, I mean, the actors are all great to begin with, but then the directors, and you've got Bryce Dallas Howard's directing, Taika Waititi's directing, right? And he's voicing a character. I think he's directing one of the episodes. I think he's directing one of the episodes. And Favreau running it. And I read an interview with Favreau, talking about why he wanted to explore this story. And it just seems like it's a bunch of Star Wars fans that are coming together for the first ever show. And that's such an enticing thing because of the structure of the universe of Star Wars. It lends itself so well to serialized television for a 10-hour story, and I'm really excited to see how Disney. That's one thing we don't know. I don't think we don't know how they're going to release it. If it's going to be like a binge thing like Netflix, or if it's going to be a weekly release like Hulu. We have no clue. I'm really excited to see how that plays out and how they choose to tell that story.
How do you hope it is, by the way? Like, what?
I mean, I'm a big fan of week by week.
Yeah, Taika and Bryce Dice.
I like
Bryce Dallas Howard.
I like the idea. Hulu experimented with this and does it with some of the shows where a new show, you'll release 3 episodes at launch and then week to week after that. And I really, really like that because it gives you an opportunity to really get invested. And then something that we did, even though Game of Thrones was not good, a lot of us kind of agree that the final season of Game of Thrones was bad.
Could have been bad.
I love the experience of everyone watching this TV together. And that's something that we don't ever really get anymore. In 2004, however many million people sat around to watch the finale of Friends and all talked about it at work the next day.
Whoa, let me shut you down right now. Don't put Friends on
No,
the podcast.
I'm simply saying like that was one of the
we can do a whole
that was one of the final big.
Can we book that?
That was one of the final big popular shows that everyone watched and everyone talked about.
A show that appealed to me.
That's fine. Whether you liked it or hate it, I'm simply saying that a lot of people were invested in that show, and the finale was something. It was an event that everyone took part in, and everyone knew what was going on. And we don't have that very much in TV anymore because the shows that are released every week, people watch them on streaming the next day, or they don't watch them at all because they have streaming instead of cable.
Ruined it. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and Netflix is all stream based and binge based. So like when Stranger Things came out, like we couldn't really talk about it on Monday because not everyone had watched all of it, and some people were halfway, some people hadn't started yet. And I love the idea of everyone getting to watch a show like The Mandalorian, something that's special. It's the first Star Wars show getting to do that every single week together. We get to come in on a Friday and watch the episode and all discuss what happened in the episode and cover it like a real TV show. I hope that's what we get to do.
I hate society. Everything is so cylindrical. When I started doing this 10 years ago, I had to fight for the idea that binge watching was good. Or it could be pleasant, or
I think it works for things.
To the other side.
It works for things.
It does.
I miss the interaction and the experience.
All right. Well, I mean, this sounds good, and I'm excited for The Mandalorian. So hopefully this weekend is going to up that excitement. Well, when we come back, stay tuned because this discussion is going to segue perfectly into our D23 preview, where we take a deep dive and we're going to look at everything coming to D23 this weekend. And we have Mr. Brandon Davis out there who will be covering it for us, and we're going to be doing a lot of coverage here. So we're going to talk about what you guys need to see when we get back. We're also going to review the new movies of the week and talk about Powers of X, the next chapter in Jonathan Hickman's Dawn of X series. So be sure to stay tuned for that. All right. So we're back, and I guess we'll start with me just getting the movie reviews out of the way because I can make this really quick. So 2 new movies opening this week. The horror film Ready or Not, and the action threequel, Angel Has Fallen. I can do both of these really quick. Let's start with Angel Has Fallen because that's an easy one. As I told the lady after I saw the screening of the film, there's only so many times you can fall and get back up successfully. And I think 2 is about the limit because 3, not so much. So Angel Has Fallen is Gerard Butler as Secret Service agent Mike Banning, who basically did Die Hard in the White House better than Channing Tatum and Jamie Foxx did with White House Down or whatever the hell that was called. But Olympus Has Fallen was good because, it was Anton Fuqua and a very violent action, like 90s testosterone action throwback.
I really enjoyed the first one.
Yeah, it was awesome, and nobody saw it coming. Nobody thought Gerard Butler would step out, and he'd done 300, but nobody thought he'd be like as good and entertaining as like a Bruce Willis as an action star.
Yeah.
And he's crazy, he's awesome, and that was good. And we were like, okay. Then we saw London Has Fallen, and we were like, all right, here we go, franchise. But London Has Fallen was also awesome.
Fun.
And very thrilling, and And these movies are good because they are. They're very violent, very thrilling, kind of edge-of-your-seat action movies, and it's not all about style and slickness like John Wick is about style and choreography. These are just kind of gritty action movies. Well, I'd say Angel Has Fallen is the most throwback of them all. It's like a late 80s throwback, and in many respects looks that way. There's a scene where these domestic terrorists blow up a whole hospital wing, kind of Joker style, and it collapses, and you see people running in front of the dust cloud, and it is straight out of a late 80s movie, and you're like, oh my God. So it's kind of bad. But the premise in this one is they flip it. Morgan, what's his name? Aaron Eckhart was the president in the first 2. Then his vice president, Morgan Freeman, took over and is vice president and is the president now. But he gets attacked. Gerard Butler gets framed, and so he's on the run. And where the other 2 were like these big kind of high concept things and these very high concept sets, like either across London or in the White House. This is literally just Gerard Butler wandering around the woods of like Virginia and like Washington D.C.
Yeah.
It's very fugitive-y for most of it, and very small. And it feels like an episode of TV more so than a movie.
Okay.
Because it's very, like I said, it's very small and self-contained. But the premise is cool. There's some betrayals, some surprising things. Jada Pinkett plays a very feisty FBI agent, and she's kind of a great addition to the cast. But overall, if you've been with the Mike Banning character and you love this guy, and you love Gerard Butler, like this is the only reason to see this movie.
Okay.
And I would wait for like on cable, like or Netflix or something, and you'll probably have an okay time. You'll be like, this is great, but like, no more falls. Just this was
Stay
the
down.
last fall.
This was the last one.
Moving right along. So one of the pleasant surprises of late summer that I did not expect to see coming was Ready or Not, which is the new horror film by the guys in Radio Silence, who you might know that name. They're a collective, but they kind of made their bones as part of that crew who made those VHS anthologies. Yeah, so like they came up alongside Adam Wingard, who
That first one.
who did Adam Wingard did Death Note, and
He's doing Kong versus
Godzilla versus Kong and all that. So they came up as contemporaries of his, and like I said, they did a lot of the VHS segments. And so they do this movie about a girl who marries into a rich family, and when she kind of has her wedding day, she finds out that the family has this crazy ritual where you have to play a game on your wedding night with them to kind of be formally indoctrinated into the family. And if you pick a certain card, the hide and seek card, it becomes this life and death game of hide and seek. And they do this because of certain reasons that are rooted in, satanic practice and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they got to kind of complete this ritual of the night and kill the person they're hunting and perform this ritual. And of course, this bride does not take this lying down, and what results is this kind of deadly game of hide and seek around a single setting inside this house. So Ready or Not is surprising because it's not like a shocking or gory horror movie. It's in the kind of weird final product that these guys turn out. It's a little bit horror. It's a lot of comedy and a lot of bit of social comedy. And I would kind of put it against Midsommar. Like I was thinking about this as this kind of new emerging form of horror subgenre. I think is really becoming popular again, which is like relationship horror.
Okay.
Like horror used as a metaphor for relationships, which is what Midsommar is. It's like a really messed up breakup movie about a bad relationship. And this one is kind of the same thing. It's commentary about what it is to try to like fit into a family grouping or marrying that you're not necessarily like a match for. In this case, she's marrying into like a high society thing of rich people in a world she's not familiar with.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of humor in the movie about that. And it's almost a little more comedy than it is horror.
Okay.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of You're Next.
Yeah.
Came out a few years ago. It seems very much
That was
along
what I was
those
trying to
lines.
remember. That was Adam Wingard's really big breakout film, You're Next.
Yeah.
And it is very much kind of that vein.
It's very funny,
a little bit
very
more
gory.
The Radio Silence those guys are a little bit more zany and kind of not afraid to be kind of weird, like I said, weird, zany, comedic.
Yeah,
good.
So there
That
are all
works.
these weird, offbeat comedic moments in the thing, including the ending, which I will not spoil for you, but it is one of the crazier endings you've ever seen. And if you've seen VHS, you'll be familiar with what these guys love to do with kind of specific horror effects and things like that. But it is, so it's kind of surprising. It brings back Adam Brody from the OC.
I was about to ask you, how is Adam Brody in this
Adam
movie?
Brody is really great in this.
It's one of the things I'm most excited about for
He reminds
this.
you of Seth from the OC. In this, he plays very much the same kind of character. He's the brother to the groomsman, the guy who marries the girl. And the guy who marries the girl, the brother is very much not into the family, whereas Adam Brody is like the reluctant brother who took the hit when they were growing up to kind of be indoctrinated into all this so his brother wouldn't be. And so he's kind of like a reluctant participant. So he just kind of is drunk throughout the whole movie, just strolling around, kind of quipping about everything.
He seems like what I expect Chris Evans' role to be in Knives Out.
Yeah, it's very much like that. He's very much
Which is
Chris
great.
Evans and Ryan Johnson's We're Knives Out. He's just like this sardonic kind of guy, just like slinking around. And
if you have no idea who we're talking about, just get on YouTube and watch clips of Adam Brody in anything.
Yeah,
Adam Brody is so great, and he's
and we
so
last saw him in
underutilized.
Shazam. He was Freddy's
Yeah,
form,
yeah.
So like, yeah,
He was supposed to be the Flash in George Miller's Justice League,
and that would have
oh
been
my
perfect.
God,
Yeah, that would
so
have been a
good,
perfect casting.
so
He'd
good.
have been a great Wally West.
I love
But
those,
so
yeah.
Ready or Not is a pleasant surprise. I say all that to say. So horror fans, you're not done yet this summer. Before it gets here, don't let this one just slip through the cracks. Go and check that out because you'll probably be pleasantly surprised and have some fun with your friends. All right, so that'll do it for new movies out this week. Be sure to check this out and let us know what you think. Moving right along, let's talk about Powers of X3. We got a lot to get to before the end of this, but let's go.
Which one
Powers
is
of X3.
it? Powers or House that's supposed to be 10? Is it Powers of 10?
Powers
How's
of
it?
10.
Powers of
Sorry.
10.
Okay, no, you're
Powers
fine.
of X.
I can never remember which one's which.
Yeah, I've been saying Powers of X, but it's Powers of 10.
It looks like Powers of X.
Yeah.
So
I think it's just Hickman's double play. This is double, triple entendre.
it
play.
makes sense now that we know what the 10 is.
So
Yeah.
we did this kind of whole theory when we kind of revisited Powers of 10 2 last week, but yeah, the fan theory turned out to be correct. The future, one of the most interesting aspects of this Dawn of X story was the year 100 future of the X-Men, where Apocalypse is leading his own team of X-Men and they're battling the man-machine supremacy. And in this issue, we kind of got for better or worse, X-Men year 100, The Last Stand.
Yep.
Where they go on this final mission to take on Nimrod and his forces with this MacGuffin that we've been teased throughout these books that we were just joking about, like Hickman's so good. Like you read this with all this intrigue and then you realize, wait, I don't even know what the main MacGuffin is. Like everybody's after and fighting about.
Yeah.
But we find out in this issue, and we're going to talk spoilers. So we find out that they found a kind of indexing library that they were looking for with the first suicide mission with the Chimera X-Men and Rasputin and everybody. And they made it back, and that allowed them to find a piece of data that they were looking for.
I told them where to find.
Yeah, where
the
to
piece.
find the other piece
Very
of
like
data
National
that they were
Treasure-esque.
looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very National Treasure-esque. That's a good comparison.
Which Hickman National Treasure. Let's just.
Oh my God.
Brandon Davis.
Yes.
Brandon Davis will just get all funny in the pants. Don't say that.
Dude, National Treasure needs.
He's not the
that.
National Treasure guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he likes it, but
I love National Treasure.
the rest of us are all pro National Treasure.
National Treasure needs that.
I know he brings it up, but I was just joking. But anyway, let's. So we find out that they're looking for the exact origin date of Nimrod, something which, again, like Hickman's very good at spotting this stuff because I've read X-Men comics since the '80s and never realized to this point that Nimrod doesn't have an exact online date.
Yeah.
Like this is very Skynet Terminator-ish, and it makes a lot of what's happening in the House of X books make sense now because the modern day House of X-Men on Krakoa, that's their mission that they've been building up to. We're going to go and take out Nimrod, which is being built by this early version of what will be the man-machine supremacy called Orcus, which is all the crazy covert Marvel organizations bonding together because screw mutants. And it all seems so simple when they're just like, yeah, we're just going on this mission. And then this issue reveals, well, how they got the intel for that mission was pretty drastic, right? The X-Men, future X-Men storm, they storm a church where that first scene, we haven't talked about that, but that first scene in the book is pretty horrific.
Screwed up.
So screwed up because you learn the whole basis of the man-machine supremacy is that these humans who believe they are flawed, inferior beings like comparative mutants, but the way to get over that hump is to join with their masters and gods, the machines.
Yeah.
Right.
And so the first scene is this church of the man-machines of supremacy where they're doing this, what looks to be a pretty regular ritual of taking a newborn baby and using this kind of orb to basically give it like a technovirus or whatever they're doing to it to make it half machine. And
That's screwed up.
Yeah, it's pretty screwed up.
Blasted in the eye, and I'm like, oh my God, it's awful.
I mean, when you have that compared to like you have that and Sinister's like growing mutants.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
The whole thing. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's
oh,
not a good
man.
future for anybody.
No,
but the X-Men storm the church to cause diversion while another team goes to this library where they're going to find Nimrod's online date. It leads to this epic fight between Nimrod and Apocalypse.
That was a cool
And
fight.
the other team of X-Men and Omega Sentinel, both of which are cool. Everybody dies except for your boy Wolverine, who never dies in anything, who goes through a portal back and reveals the other big secret of this timeline, that Moira was injured at a certain point fighting this Apocalypse War and was put in stasis. And they let her out of stasis and they give her the MacGuffin, which is the exact date of Nimrod's origin. And then in true Wolverine fashion, he has one last job to do, which is Jean Grey hair ass, which is just stab her through the abdomen.
Such a great line, by the
Yeah.
way. This is what you do best,
Yeah.
right? Oh,
Yeah,
so
Moira, 'cause
good.
he's all like torn up, and he's like,
So
man,
good.
like this isn't cool. Like I gotta, and she's like, oh, it's cool. This is what you do.
And then that adds so much more to like in the scene at the beginning of this whole thing in year 0 when Moira goes to Charles and he reads her mind and it's like, oh, it's horrific because he saw all the lives and all the different things. Yeah. But now it's knowing that he saw the entire fall of everything.
Yeah.
He saw the supremacy war. He saw the fall of mutants. He saw the fall of man. He saw the destruction of essentially the entire world. Yeah. And that's now his responsibility to deal with. And that makes that moment so much better.
They did say that was the most important moment.
Most important
and
scene.
they're proving
and
to be right.
Building on it. We keep building on it.
It's so
and we were all
impressive.
just talking so much trash when they showed that preview page. We're like, this is just a splash page with Moira and Xavier's faces. What kind of crap pastel colors? What kind of crap is this? Well, now we know what kind of crap it is.
Yeah, this was not a, hey, J.J. Abrams is writing a book. This was like for real. And like, this is one of those that wasn't hyperbole.
And like the best kind of stories, this isn't a time travel story. Hickman's been very clear about that, or alternate universe, but it is kind of a weird time travel story in a way. And it messes with your head like a time travel story about the ramifications and the effects of thinking that, like, Moira went through this whole war, this whole future because she became eternal. Apocalypse transformed her, and she was essentially, granted a much longer life to live on and see all this happen and all like the pain, suffering, and then this horrible, violent death she goes through, loses all her friends and, whatever her covenant lover, Apocalypse, whatever you categorize that as. And then she's just has to then be born and then live her entire life up until that point where she sees Charles Xavier again and is like, and that makes, if you go back and look at Powers of 10, the first issue, when they have that meeting, like I said, we've talked about it before, but she comes to the carnival and she's saying what she saw in the carnival, and she's making allusions to the fact that what she sees in the carnival and the pictures show you that they represent like Rasputin and Cardinal and the monolith of the Nimrod's monolith, and these are all her making reference to this past ninth life.
Also, how cool was that moment when Cardinal like takes the special like apocalypse pod and overrides the program? He's like, I'm gonna die, but I'm gonna do it like go out in style, like start stabbing a bunch of people.
The coolest moment though of the whole thing was Zorn, where he's like, I want to die, and she's like, it's a singularity, I'm gonna do it, and then she's like, oh no, you won't, and he's like,
well, we got to.
It was like, Rasputin. It's like, oh no.
So their diversion thing is a suicide mission. Yeah. Rasputin, Cardinal, and Zorn go and attack the church. Omega Sentinel comes with her army of Sentinels to kill them. They fight this out, and they're losing. And so their Trump move is to basically, Rasputin says like, I'll rip off Zorn's mask, and his head is a singularity, a black hole, and you're screwed. And then there's this ominous thing, which, Omega Sentinel says that Charlie has tinfoil hat theories about, where she says, do you know what happens when you go to the center of a black hole? You have no idea. And she's like, whatever, we're going to find out together. And Zorn, who I love in this storyline, future nihilistic Zorn is like the best. He's like, hey, I want to die. Let's do it. Let's take this ride.
He's so good.
And they whip off the mask, and there's a great piece of art of him just smiling under the mask.
He's like super Ghost Rider for a lot of this. He's like, I don't even care. Let's rock and roll.
Yeah.
And this is Silva, right? I think this is RB Silva who does this one. Fantastic. Like throughout this whole issue.
I mean, the art for House is good, but the Powers artwork has been so incredible.
That scene when they all like the four show up right towards the beginning, that is an awesome page. The Apocalypse, Nimrod stuff, fantastic.
Some of the best Apocalypse.
So good, man.
Such a and just like such a horrific book and like chapter. Like I mean, even somebody like Apocalypse, you think, okay, like I'm not gonna get attached, but like his death scene, like where Nimrod makes copies of himself and they're all about like to twist his head off, and he just says that thing to him like Apocalypse, the eternal mutant, the fittest, sucks for you. It's all led to this, and it's like, oh,
they made you empathize, root for Apocalypse. That's amazing. Yeah. Like, and then that last bit where it's just like, this is the end of her ninth life, and you're like, because then you start putting all together.
I said, like, I'm kind of like too much of a cynic because we work on theories all the time, and I had written out this whole theory, so I was just like, yeah, all right. But and at first I was like, what's wrong with me? Because I saw other people like freaking out, and I was like, okay, just imagine you hadn't written all this, and I went back and was like, that would have been a spectacular.
That'd been a great moment,
because you've been like, because everybody thought this was the future of her 10th life after House of X. That was like the mislead. Which now leaves us with the big question I addressed, which is, what the hell is year 1000? Who is this librarian? What is the Nimrod drone? Because this looked like the natural step after this war was long over.
Yeah.
And humanity was gone, and they were going to regrow humanity, and it was just like mutants kind of were gone, machines were kind of gone, like the librarian's trying to bring all, like, keep track and catalog all this. And like that's what it seemed like. But now we know it was just her 9th life. It ended in that 100 years future, and we have no idea what this 1,000 years future is.
So cool.
Or what Moira's 6th life is.
Yeah,
These are
exactly.
two big mysteries kind of hanging out there right now. So Powers of X, Powers of 10, House of X, it goes on.
Very good.
The struggle
Love
continues, and we're all looking forward to House of X 3 this week.
Yeah.
Okay, that'll do it for that. Charlie,
Yo.
take us home with a preview of D23 breakdown. What should we be looking forward to? What should people be checking out on
right.
Comicbook.com this week?
So there is a ton of stuff happening at D23. Obviously, if you don't know, it's kind of Disney's own convention, like Comic-Con strictly for Disney. It happens once every 2 years. It's in Anaheim, California this weekend, Friday through Sunday. Or that's at least this is where the panels are. There's a bunch of stuff going on. I mean, if you're into, like, there's going to be Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. panel. There's going to be, like, the Marvel Comics 80th anniversary panel. There's going to be, Sunday is a lot about the parks and what's coming to the parks. So we'll probably get some information about the Orlando Galaxy's Edge and maybe the Marvel land that's opening in California, I believe, next year. There's gonna be a lot of details about that, and just the Disney shows, all kinds of everything Disney. But in terms of people listening to this podcast, if you read Comicbook.com, there are a couple things that you'll be more interested in with this convention than other things. And the two key panels are going to be on Friday evening. I believe it's Friday 3:30 p.m. Pacific, and Saturday morning at 10 p.m. Pacific. The Friday night panel is Disney Plus. And so Disney Plus launches on November 12th. And obviously everyone's talking about it's going to be a huge thing. We were just talking about with The Mandalorian. It's going to house everything Disney, all the Marvel universe, except for maybe Spider-Man, all of the Star Wars movies and shows and everything Pixar, everything Disney's ever done. It's going to be on the streaming service. And we're going to have the originals like The Mandalorian, and then the coming, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, WandaVision, Loki, Hawkeye. They're all going to be on this platform. It's going to disrupt the entire streaming game when it launches on November 12th. I don't think anyone thinks any different about how that's going to go. But this panel is going to give us a lot of information about the shows and the projects that are being worked on. We're going to get a Mandalorian trailer. We're probably going to get a trailer for the Lady and the Tramp movie that's coming out. That's going to be a launch day thing. The movie Noelle with Anna Kendrick.
There was such a look of judgment on your face when
I saw
said
the first
yay.
promo image for that. And I'm
I know. I was.
How isn't this just a YouTube video of two dogs?
I don't know.
It's going to be great. And then Noelle is an Anna Kendrick movie. That's going to be a launch day thing. Some of the little launch day things. I know they're doing a little Forky miniseries from Toy Story. High School Musical, the series. It's a very meta, like what they're doing with Beverly Hills 90210 right now, where it's like this High School Musical is a high school. I think it might be the same high school. They're putting on a musical based on High School Musical, and it's like a docu-series about them.
So
them
meta
trying to do
that
it. It's going to be ridiculous.
That's
So we'll get some trailers for that launch day stuff. They'll give you some information about the Marvel stuff down the line, maybe about the Obi-Wan show, maybe about the Rogue One prequel show. We don't know exactly what, but we're going to get a lot of information.
Get a new Rise of Skywalker trailer?
No, I don't believe so.
Oh.
If we do, that'll be on Saturday morning. Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific is the Disney Studios panel, and that's the big one. It's 2 hours long. That's the one everyone's excited about and everyone's ready for. That's going to be everything housed in Disney. So Disney Live Action Studios, Disney Animation, Pixar, Star Wars, and Marvel Studios. They're all going to have presentations at the panel. We don't know what they're going to show yet. We know they're going to talk about the Rise of Skywalker. They will probably show something about the Rise of Skywalker at the panel. I doubt they will release anything online, unless it's going to be like Star Wars always does those BTS reels to advertise. They might do that. I just wrote an article about it on comicbook.com/Star Wars about will they release a trailer, and I don't think they will, because when you look at the last two, The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, both trailers, the feature trailers for the movie, were released in mid-October. Okay. And they had very similar release dates and very similar trailer release dates. So I think they're going to wait for a full trailer. We might get some more information about the movie itself, or about some of the plot or characters. We might get a couple new photos, maybe even a BTS reel, but I don't think we're going to get maybe a new poster, but not a new trailer. And they might have some words about the trilogy that comes next. I doubt it, because it's far away, but there's always a chance of that in the Disney Studios panel. We'll probably get a look at Soul, which is the new Pixar movie after Upward. There's two Pixar movies in 2020. Upward's the first one, and then Pete Docter's Soul, he's the head of Pixar now, took over for John Lasseter. He made Inside Out. He is making a movie called Soul, which should be another intrinsic, really deep Pixar movie. We'll probably get a look at that. We have no idea what Marvel's going to do. That's kind of the big what if here. is what Marvel's going to do.
No
You know, because Disney has Frozen 2 on the way, and Maleficent on the way, and Mulan. It has like projects that you know they're going to talk about.
Matt stuff is what I call
Right. So
I knew the judgy.
Marvel, like they just unveiled a whole slate at Comic-Con, so they might reiterate some of that.
But you don't think we'll get the second half, like? Because I mean, you look at that slate that they revealed.
I think that's
Comic-Con.
the whole Phase 4.
No,
I don't
it's not.
think that's
They've
the whole
already
phase
said it's
4.
not.
Black Panther 2.
I mean, I think
Captain Marvel
they'll
2.
consider that Phase 5.
Like,
I think that there's not going to be as many announcements at this as there was at Comic-Con. I think that we're going to get some more specific news. I think we will get at least a teaser or a first photo that will be released online. I think we'll get something from Black Panther or from Black Widow. I think we'll make it something about the Eternals. You know, production just started, so we'll probably get just a word about that, maybe a synopsis, something like that.
they've got to confirm those other sequels. At least those two major sequels.
Black Panther 2 and Captain.
Oh, I mean,
Because they mentioned them at Comic-Con.
Feige confirmed that they were on the way.
Okay,
we just
but
don't know when they're going to happen.
I think they're going to, like, there's got to be a date.
And
or
honestly, we don't know if this
Entitled
Spider-Man issue is
something.
putting a wrench into things. If they're going to have to adjust their plans because of Spider-Man, I don't think
All you
either
gotta
one of
do is
those
tell
would
us,
count.
like Black
But-
Panther 2 is
Title
like
and a date.
War of Kings or something,
Yeah,
and
that's it.
everybody goes nuts.
But I think that there might be some mention of those, but we're not going to get a whole full like slate reveal like we got at Comic-Con.
No,
I don't believe.
it'll be additional.
The thing I'm holding out for that I'm really not confident in, I don't have any insight into this. It's just my personal feeling. I think the big thing will be the first look of Black Widow. We might see Taskmaster. We might see whatever David Harbour's Red Guardian. I think we'll get a look at Black Widow. I think there'll be something for them to announce. We just don't know what. So that's
Given
10
it goes
a.m. to
Disney
noon
Plus,
Pacific
do you think
time.
we could get any like screenings of first episodes of anything?
What do you mean at the convention? So they are screening the first episode of High School Musical at a separate panel after the Disney Plus panel on Friday evening. The panel will show. They said they'll show looks at these new shows. I don't think they'll screen the episodes for people outside of High School Musical. So I think that we'll see
Like a sizzle reel type
Yeah,
thing?
well, I mean, I said trailer. None of these things have trailers yet.
Yeah.
So we'll get those trailers because the whole thing launches in.
Yeah, it's
2 months?
right around the corner.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
we'll get that information. But yeah, those are the two panels you want to pay attention to. If you're into the parks, Sunday morning is the parks panel. And there might be some more information tomorrow morning, Friday morning. I guess if you're listening to this morning, the Disney Legends Ceremony is the first thing that kicks off the event on Friday. And Robert Downey Jr. and Jon Favreau and some other people that involved in Marvel will be a part of that. Ming-Na Wen will be a part of that. So there won't be news there, but they might talk about some things that'll be interesting to people. So that ceremony and a couple of other panels will be live streamed on the D23, I believe, Twitter and YouTube. I'll have to double check, but none of the big panels like Star Wars,
Yeah,
the studios, Disney Plus, they won't be live streamed. But the Marvel Comics panel will be live streamed. The Disney Celebration or the Legend Celebration, a couple other small ones will be live streamed. So you can, if you're into that stuff, check that D23 Twitter account and they'll give you that.
Ooh, it'd be awesome if the Marvel Comics panel goes into that new Annihilation series.
Yeah, if they do, the big reveal there is Marvel Comics 1000. They're giving out for people that attend the panel. They're giving out a special D23 variant.
Oh, cool.
Of Marvel Comics 1000, and that's supposed to be its own story and all that. So there's things for everybody at this convention, whether you think you love Disney or not, because Disney owns so much.
Disney owns you, so enjoy.
I mean, and Dark Horse pick here, because they say Lucasfilm and not specifically Star Wars is involved. I think they're going to say something about Indiana Jones, but that's just my Dark Horse. Like, that's my guess. I think we're going to get some kind of Indiana Jones announcement in the next little bit, because Disney only has dated films through 2021. So
All I know is I just saw the South Park episode about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull the other day, and yeah.
That's King's King Con.
oh, that was horrifying.
Yeah. And on that note, we're out of here. We're going to get out of here for this
Terrifying. I
episode
never
of
wanna hear
Comic
that
Book
again.
Nation with Matt creeping you out. If you are just now getting into the
no.
show, we put up new episodes every Wednesday, every Friday on Comicbook.com. Look at our technician scramble back in the booth like he's been there the whole time. We see you, Brian. We know you haven't been there the whole time.
Oh God.
But anyway, back to the show. If you want to get new episodes, Wednesday, Friday, comicbook.com. You can subscribe to our RSS feed and get updates on new shows. You can subscribe on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Google Playlist, or tell any Amazon Alexa device, play Comic Book Nation podcast, and it'll fire right up. If you want to continue any discussion of anything we've talked about, hit us up at the hashtag Comic Book Nation, or you can find me at Kofi Outlaw.
You can find me at Matt Aguilar CB.
And I'm at Charlie Ridgely.
And if you like the show and want some Comic Book Nation swag, go on iTunes, leave us a 5-star review, tell us why you like the show. We read reviews on air when we are not overbooked for time like today, and we will read it on air, and within about a month or so, you'll get a Comic Book Nation t-shirt shipped your way. So be sure to leave your reviews. That'll do it for this episode, but we will be here this weekend covering D23. Make sure you keep it locked to Comicbook.com for all the latest, because if you happen to be a fan of any of those small franchises like Marvel or Star Wars or all this other Disney stuff Matt likes, then there's going to be some hot new updates that you are going to want to be sure to get first. So stay tuned. And otherwise, we'll be back to talk to you next episode and wrap up this whole D23 thing and tell you what we learned, and we'll all discuss together. So be sure to be informed. Thank you for tuning in. That'll do it. This is Comic Book Nation. We out.
Deuces.